On behalf of the government and the 19 United Nations agencies operating within the Caribbean, a special welcome is extended to you to witness the launch of the Multi-Country Sustainable Development Framework, dubbed the MSDF 2017 to 2021. This launch of the MSDF is both historic and futuristic. Historic because the MSDF is about creating a better life for citizens. And since the MSDF is people-focused, the People's Parliament, the grounds of this noble institution, which facilitates effective representation of the people's business, is the best place to host this launch. Many thanks to you, Honorable Speaker. This launch is also historic because the government of Guyana, through the office of the Honorable Minister of Finance, was among the first in the 18 countries and territories in the region to endorse the MSDF. This, ladies and gentlemen, is a signal and demonstration of the government's commitment to a new way of working in partnership with the United Nations to deliver results to its people. Finally, this launch is futuristic because the MSDF provides that platform for the UN to deliver as one, working with the government to achieve the Sustainable Development Goals 2030 and the National Development Objectives so that no citizen will be left behind. Ladies and gentlemen, the MSDF is a regional programmatic framework for 18 countries and territories and 19 United Nations agencies. While the MSDF replaces the country-specific UNDAF, that is, the United Nations Development Assistance Framework, it provides the framework for us to operationalize at the country level the country implementation plan, which is aligned to the government policies, priorities, programs, and result indicators across sectors. While these programmatic approaches are result-oriented, cost-effective, facilitates multi-sectoral collaboration, allows for systematic tackling of multi-dimensional development issues together, enables regional approaches and synergies across cross-cutting issues to ensure that no citizen is left behind. Permit me to conclude my welcome remarks using the words of Al Gore. Nothing I say to you, nothing anyone can say to you will create a better life for anyone except we commit ourselves to action, ownership, leadership to achieve the results together.
The United Nations country team in Guyana is very happy to have your presence this morning to formally launch the Multi-Country Sustainable Development Framework for 2017 to 2021 with the government of Guyana. This MSDF, as we call it short, formally brings in the UN delivering as one approach to Guyana and the Caribbean. Delivering as one is not new in the UN and as a practice not new in Guyana. With the complexities of developmental challenges and the declining trends of traditional official development aid, the case for delivering as one is an obvious one. At the same time, obstacles to coordination are many in the complex institutional architecture of the United Nations, built over a century through international political processes. In response to the call by member states to enhance the coherence and effectiveness of the UN's developmental operations on the ground, Kofi Annan in 2006 launched Delivering as One to pilot country-led and country-tailored development responses by capitalizing on the comparative strengths of the different members of the UN family. Through experimentation over the years around the world, the UN system has adopted common tools and standard operating procedures to deliver development results together with governments and other stakeholders in the countries we serve. Guyana, with 17 other Caribbean countries and territories, have agreed to formally adopt Delivering as One, and 19 UN agencies have signed up to participate under the 5-year Caribbean MSDF. This regional framework also allows the UN to collaborate with regional entities such as CARICOM to tackle common challenges in the region. In Guyana, the country team will work with the government in the 4 MSDF pillars of an inclusive, equitable, and prosperous Guyana, a safe, cohesive, and just Guyana, a healthy Guyana, and a sustainable and resilient Guyana, while individual UN agencies will continue working in respective areas of mandated expertise with line ministries and other institutions. Let me explain 3 ways of how we intend to deliver as one, to deliver results together. Firstly, we will tackle multidimensional developmental issues together. The 17 Sustainable Development Goals, SDGs, are not silos. They are very interconnected. Poverty, hunger, inequality, insecurity, unemployment, educational underperformance have deep and complex root causes. Climate change and demographic and economic pressures on natural resources add further uncertainties on people's lives. Resolving these issues requires coordinated actions between line ministries and other institutions, nationally, regionally, and locally. The UN system will work together with the government to embed multidimensional approaches in development policies, such as the Green State Development Strategy, and jointly support accelerated actions on the ground. Secondly, the UN system will jointly strengthen data systems in Guyana for evidence-based policy making, planning, monitoring, and reporting. The 17 SDGs each have a set of global indicators that have yet to be embedded in national plans. This should be a meaningful exercise that enables the government to target, deliver, and report results through their normal work. Thirdly, human development is our common objective and approach. The SDGs should leave no one behind. Guyana's Green State Development Strategy should lead to a cohesive society and good life for all. The UN system will work with government in focusing on the multiple challenges facing the most disadvantaged, vulnerable, and marginalized groups of people, and to find ways to enable them access to opportunities and services, to expand and fulfill their life potentials, and to lead a life of dignity. These groups include families in poverty, adolescents and single mothers, most disadvantaged children and youth, indigenous people, persons living with HIV and AIDS, people with disabilities, elderlies, the LGBT, victims of abuse, violence, and trafficking. We recognize from our development work around the world that this requires hard and sustained efforts, and it takes time. State policies, laws, resource allocations, services, and programs need to be inclusive and enabling, but attitudinal and behavioral transformations are also needed in society. Moving forward, the UN system with the government will hold consultations on our country implementation plan for 2017 with a wider group of stakeholders and partners to engage and collaborate in the implementation. There are many committed people and organizations in public services, civil society, religious organizations, media, private sector, and communities who devote their efforts to contribute to society and help less fortunate persons. The UN system has worked with many over the years. I would also like to recognize the donor partners who bring valuable financial contributions through the UN system. Canada European Union, the Gavi Alliance, GRIF Norway, the GEF, Global Fund for AIDS, Tuberculosis, and Malaria, the IDB, IFAD, Japan, RAVREDA, the UK DFID, and the US through its different channels, USAID, PEPFAR, the State Department. Thank you all very much for the trust and collaboration. We look forward to strengthening and expanding our partnerships. Please let me thank the National Assembly for allowing us to hold this launch at this esteemed institution that is at the heart of Guyana's political history and is symbolic in the representation of the citizens of Guyana, a reminder of whom our work should be serving. We look forward to collaboration with the honorable members across party lines. Finally, I thank the government of the Cooperative Republic of Guyana, the President, the Prime Minister, the Minister of State, the Minister of Finance, all the line ministers, permanent secretaries, and staff who have worked with the UN country team to start this journey of delivering results together. I would like to conclude by citing a message from the UN Secretary General, Antonio Guterres. Today's paradox is that despite greater connectivity, societies are becoming more fragmented. More and more people live within their own bubbles, unable to appreciate their links with the whole human family. In the end, it comes down to values. We want the world our children inherit to be defined by the values enshrined in the United Nations Charter: peace, justice, respect, human rights, tolerance, and solidarity. All major religions embrace these principles, and we strive to reflect them in our daily lives. But the threats to these values are most often based on fear. Our duty to the peoples we serve is to work together to move from fear of each other to trust in each other, trust in the values that bind us, and trust in the institutions that serve and protect us. Thank you very much.
Honorable Prime Minister and First Vice President Moses Veersamy Nagamutu, Speaker of the National Assembly, Dr. Barton Scotland, Honorable Ministers of the Government, members of the Diplomatic Corps, Resident Coordinator of the United Nations System in Guyana, Ms. Tanaka, other representatives of UN agencies in Guyana, senior government officials, members of Parliament, members of the media, ladies and gentlemen. It's almost midday, so I'll say good day. It is indeed an honor to deliver these remarks on the occasion of the launch of the UN Multi-Country Sustainable Development Framework in the Caribbean for the period 2017 to 2021. And it's also indeed an honor for it to be launched on these familiar grounds where we meet to discuss the people's business and to deliver results to them. Today, Guyana makes its mark in history by being the first country in the Caribbean to launch the country implementation plan of the UN MSDF. This should be nothing new for this government. Since we have arrived, we have been creating many firsts. The national component of the MSDF will be implemented through the rollout of the SIP, using the United Nations delivering as one modality. More importantly though, I'm pleased to report that Guyana is one of 18 Caribbean countries that have been integrally involved in the planning of this new regional UN Development Assistance Framework, which was completed after extensive consultations. Through the adoption of the Delivering as One mechanism, the Cooperative Republic of Guyana will be poised to reap the benefits of the combined ideas, skills, capacities, and institutional experiences to be provided by the UN family and the Caribbean region. Further, it is envisaged that the harmonized approach and best practices to be employed will produce the expected outcomes. At the global level, against the backdrop of dwindling resources to finance social, economic, and environmental interventions, development partners are seeking newer and more innovative, efficient, and sustainable methods of delivering assistance to developing countries. Consequently, they want developing partners to take ownership of their development objectives and outcomes by being intimately involved in the planning, programming, and implementation phases. Essentially, the adoption of this approach will lead to the achievement of results which are country-specific and cost-effective, while allowing for greater maximization of the limited available resources. The Development Assistance Framework launched today was created using the aforementioned principles. Therefore, it is expected to produce results that will be carefully planned and orchestrated with all the stakeholders involved throughout the programming cycle. Indeed, during a recent meeting with Mr. Nako, I indicated to her my pleasure at the progress and contributions made by the United Nations within the last decade in Guyana. Today's signing is further testimony of that organization's continued contribution to this great land of ours. Over the next 5 years, the Caribbean region, including the Cooperative Republic of Guyana, will pursue 4 priority areas in which to engage UN system. These areas are: 1, an inclusive, equitable, and prosperous Caribbean; 2, a safe, cohesive, and just Caribbean; 3, a healthy Caribbean; and 4, a sustainable and resilient Caribbean. The goal of this development framework is to provide member states with the requisite tools, partnerships, and resources needed to achieve national and sub-regional priorities in an inclusive and equitable manner. In the case of Guyana, our government has identified the sustainable development goals which it deems to be most critical and immediate to creating the enabling environment for achieving our socio-economic development. Indeed, it is none other than His Excellency President David Granger who established the Charter for Guyana's growth and development through the immediate adoption of Sustainable Development Goals 1, 4, 5, and 9 at the UN Summit on Sustainable Development held not so long ago. It was his view that the SDGs, when used collectively, could bring an end to poverty, create inclusive and equitable quality education, promote lifelong opportunities, and pave the way for the achievement of gender equality and empowerment of women and girls. Poverty exists in many parts of Guyana, especially in the hinterland regions, but it is our government's priority to reduce its incidence, focusing on an aggressive implementation of our green agenda. Very soon, we will pilot a green development program for multi-dimensional poverty reductions in regions 1, 5, 9, and 10. The UN country team is already engaged at different levels of interventions in this regard. This synergy is closely aligned to the SDGs to address poverty and our government's own policies and programs, which are designed to tackle poverty within vulnerable communities. During his discussion with our UN resident coordinator, President David Granger did outline the importance of the UN being an entity which focuses on delivering results that are measurable, achievable, and sustainable. We strongly believe that the UN MSDF is indeed a positive step towards the attainment of His Excellency's mandate. The implementation of the GOG UN MSDF will require the full participation and determination of all stakeholders, especially the lead partners, such as our line ministries and budget agencies. I therefore urge my colleagues and other senior government officials to embark on this trajectory with a fervor that leads to the creation of an enabling environment for the realization of a good life for all in a green economy. I've given my commitment to Mr. Naka for my staff at the Ministry of Finance to be meaningfully engaged in monitoring and evaluating this implementation process so as to ensure that the plan objectives and results in the UN MSDF and the country implementation plans are achieved. In closing, I charge my colleague ministers and other government officials to be fully committed to this process. I thank the UN and all of its agencies, its officials and staff for bringing us here together today and for giving us an opportunity to progress in the context of our development objectives. I thank you very much.
Madam Mikiko Tanaka, UNDP Resident Coordinator, Speaker of the National Assembly, Vice President Sidney Allicock, Minister of Finance Winston Jordan, the heavyweight associated with this project, other ministers of government, and I have to be very careful here again, and I'm looking and scanning to see if there is a representative of the Leader of the Opposition. If so, representative of the Leader of the Opposition, other members of Parliament, Excellencies and members of the Diplomatic Corps, members of the media, ladies and gentlemen. It gives me great pleasure to join with you today as the government of Guyana and the United Nations country team launched the United Nations Multi-Country Sustainable Development Framework, the MSDF, in the Caribbean, and the signing ceremony of the UN Country Implementation Plan. The government of Guyana is committed to raising the standard of living, improving the social conditions, and delivering a better life for all Guyanese. The government of Guyana is very thankful and appreciative of the UNDP's support in this regard. In providing the good life for all, we will collaborate and work closely with our development partners, civil society, regional organizations, international financial institutions, and, of course, UN agencies. I applaud the work of the UNDP. The UNDP has been operating in Guyana for just over 50 years, since our independence in 1966. It supports the government of Guyana in pursuit of national goals and objectives as articulated by the government in its national development strategic frameworks. The government country program for the period 2012-2016 was approved by the UNDP Executive Board in February of that year under the three practice areas of poverty reduction and the MDGs, democratic governance and environment, energy and sustainable development, as well as the Guyana Shield Facility sub-regional project. Hence the UNMSDF 2017-2021 and the 2017 Guyana Country Implementation Plan, referred to the CIP, are part of a larger profile for Guyana's economic development. The aim of the UN MSDF is to ensure that no one is left behind in national development efforts and exemplifies the commonly shared belief that the similar development challenges of the Caribbean countries required a coherent and coordinated response by the United Nations. Moreover, the UN MSDF acts as a mechanism that would decrease the administrative burden on national governments and prompt a more coherent response to regional and national challenges, needs, and priorities. In addition, the new UN MSDF will focus on 4 priorities, as was explained by Madam Tanaka: an inclusive, equitable, and prosperous Caribbean, a healthy Caribbean, a safe, cohesive, and just Caribbean, and a sustainable and resilient Caribbean. Furthermore, as the resident coordinator has mentioned, the UN MSDF supports the realization of the Sustainable Development Goals, the SDGs, the comprehensive Samoa Pathway as regards small islands and other international development aspirations, and the national development plans of the individual countries in the English and Dutch-speaking Caribbean. Guyana is a signatory to the Paris Agreement on Climate Change and has adopted the 2030 Sustainable Development Agenda, which provides a framework for the realization of the green economy. The work of the government in this regard will be to ensure that our resources are developed and utilized in a responsible manner that ensures optimum sustainability, even as we provide for the needs of our people. Guyana looks forward to working with the UNDP, development partners, and regional organizations on achieving the Sustainable Development Goals. I can assure you, Excellency, ladies and gentlemen, that the government of the Cooperative Republic of Guyana is committed to delivering results together with the UN for all the people of Guyana. The pursuit of the green economy and the SDGs will require the participation of all stakeholders to make Guyana a better place for all Guyanese. Resident Coordinator, ladies and gentlemen, in closing, I issue a call, and this call is for all of us to work and to work together. We can only deliver if we are all involved. As our national poet Martin Carter had advised us, all are involved, all are consumed. It is fitting, therefore, that we are here at our Parliament buildings in these auspicious hallways, and that we have representatives from all state institutions, civil society, private sector, political parties, and development partners. We are all reflected within these walls and halls of the Parliament. Let us join hands and work together for a better Guyana and a more equitable world. I thank you for listening.